stages of life. Doesn't work anymore. Does it work now? Yes, it does. Stages of life in Theravada Buddhism, and as it applies today, from the very early times, from the Buddha's time, up to the present time. As I said the other day, the liberal attitudes of the Buddha promulgated in his principles, in the preached by him, have influenced the Buddhist life and all stages, the process of coming of age of women in Sri Lanka. The birth of a daughter is no cause for despair in Sri Lanka, unlike in India. Although son preference is still a desired practice, as in all patriarchal societies, for the continuance of the late patrilineal lineage. By the time the Buddha emerged in India in the 600 BC, the status of women had declined owing to the domination of the priestly caste of the Brahmanas, and her position was low, and the birth of a son was of special significance. A woman existed of respected for giving birth to a son only. According to the laws of Manu, the man's after-death happiness was ensured only by the due performance of his funeral rites by his son, the man's son. A woman was duly honored if she was only a mother of her son. So I quote, by a son a man conquers the world, by a son he enjoys immortality, and afterward by the son of a grandson he reaches the solar abode. There was no place in India before the birth of the Buddha for the birth of a girl. It is the Buddha who gave credibility, legitimacy, respectability for a daughter. Girl child. In Sri Lanka, the Buddhist liberal attitudes are still in practice at present to varying degrees. The birth of a girl is not considered a cause for despair, while in neighboring India, as I said, the discrimination against girl children at birth has today reached a high point, as seen in the use of high technology of amniocentesis tests to abort female fetus. If after screening the baby, the womb, the fetus, if it is found it is a girl that is going to be born, she would be aborted. The fetus would be aborted until the woman gets a son, until the woman conceives a son. Many women go on conceiving but aborting the fetus. On the contrary, in Sri Lanka today, every family longs to have at least one female child in the family. It is still a very popular wish of the parents, both mother and father, and the siblings to have at least one girl child, at least. This perhaps reflects the expectations that a daughter would take good care of the parents in old age, as well as the practical value of a daughter's assistance to the mother, taking care of the family. For whatever reasons, a daughter is greatly valued in the family. Even up to now, it is so. In Sri Lanka, a family with a daughter as the first child is considered fortunate. If the family the mother gets as the first child is considered fortunate. That has been a tradition from days, I could say immemorial. It is the seniority in age among siblings, that is sisters and brothers, irrespective of sex, that counts in assuming decision-making powers in the family. That is, if the first is a boy, if this is a girl, it is of course the first in terms of seniority, and if the younger sibling is a son, he would not assume the role of the leader in the family. Leader among the siblings, it is the girl. It is in terms of seniority. However, the elder sister generally has a special place as indicated by the popular proverb, current even today, The proverb is, an elder sister is the second mother. In Sri Lanka today, the mother is the most respected person, more respected than the father, at least in theory. The famous Sinhala saying, used even today, Gedara Budun Amma, that is, mother is the Buddha at home. It is a very famous saying. This shows that the mother commands respect and honor as much as the Buddha does. Holler, I.B. Holler from England, who surveyed the entire, she was a Buddhist scholar, entire Pali literature says, the early literature, the birth of girl children was no longer met with open-eyed and loud-voiced despair. For girls had ceased to be despised and looked upon as encumbrances. They were now allowed a good deal of liberty. That is during the Buddha's time, after the Buddha preached what it was to be a girl or a boy. It is significant that there is only one record of dissatisfaction expressed at the birth of a girl in the Buddhist literature. When King Pasenadi, very famous king in Buddhist literature called King Pasenadi, went to the Buddha, when he heard that a girl was born to his wife, the chief queen, he went running to the Buddha and said, "Oh Lord, oh King, what a pity. Now my wife has just given birth to a daughter, what a disaster." The Buddha replied, "A girl may even prove a better child than a boy. A girl may even prove better than a boy." Then the king had not yet been converted to Buddhism. This episode is a demonstration of the social transformation that was taking place during the Buddha's time. It's the campaign he launched. It is also significant that there was also no practice of abandoning or divorcing a wife if the woman got a child, girl child, as in other religions, for example in Hinduism. There occurs not a single instance of female infanticide, killing of a girl, no reference whatsoever in the Buddhist literature to killing of a girl. There is no evidence for this practice in India in the ancient past, although it is now a fairly common thing. Extreme forms of female discrimination, there are some mistakes in the paper, forms of female discrimination such as child marriage never existed in Sri Lanka. Young woman, now the second stage of the life cycle, coming of age as a young woman. When a child becomes a young woman, although she is more protected by the mother than is her son, for reasons you know, she has considerable freedom in the family and the community. It is noteworthy that the ideal virtues of women, as promulgated by the Buddha, did not refer to any traditional accepted exclusive female virtues. The Buddha's ideal virtues are equally relevant to both men and women. They are as follows, I am going to read out. For both men and women, it was the same virtues, no double standards, one for men and one for women. Number one, religious devotion, which was expected both by men and women to observe. A sense of shame and fear. Perhaps in the case of women, it's a little more emphasized for practical reasons. For getting pregnant, the men do not get pregnant. Number three, devoid of malice and animosity. Same for men and women, everything. Not jealous, not miserly, pure in conduct, virtuous and moral, learned and well-versed in knowledge, very much today a male virtue. Ardent and zealous, again a male virtue. Mentally alert, again a male virtue. Wise and sagacious. All those last four are today generally associated by and large with men. Fortunately, in Sri Lanka, as you perhaps may have read, the literacy rates are almost the same for both men and women for centuries. And in fact, women in higher education are higher in Sri Lanka than men. That is for women in higher education, much more than women. And also holding of going to university, I meant more than with men. And holding of high positions over a time, it was not so, but now it has picked up, going back to the traditional Buddhist principles. Following these four, especially these four qualities associated with knowledge, mental capacities, and wisdom, etc., our nuns in the ancient past, our Sri Lankan bhikkhunis, went to China, as was discussed even yesterday, and gave dictionary ordination to Chinese women in 437 after Christ. And Chandramali was another yogini who went to a Sri Lankan woman who went to Tibet in the 11th century and translated 5 tantra books of the Tibetan Tripitaka, that is Tantul, from Sanskrit to Tibetan. So those of you who read the Tibetan or even the Mongolian, you can read these 5 tantra books written by a Sri Lankan woman in the Chinese, in the Mongolian and the Tibetan Tripitaka. 5 tantra books. Married women. Role of married women in then during the Buddha's time and today now in Sri Lanka. For those who have opted to marry, the concept of virginity before marriage as a special virtue, unlike in the case of a man, was introduced to Sri Lanka with Christianity, and now it is fast disappearing. As you know, I'm not going into detail. In Christianity, that was a must virtue that women must have. And it is fast disappearing. It was prevalent in Sri Lanka because of the Christian values that spread after colonization and the spread of Christianity. However, it is still the accepted practice for women to remain virgins. Arranged marriage is the norm in old days, but is being fast replaced. I'm skipping next paragraph. The familial and extra-familial and interfamilial relationships were discussed by the Buddha, as I discussed the other day in Sigalova Sutta. I want to emphasize only one aspect. When a woman is a student or a teacher or an employee or employer, last time I discussed husband and wife relationships, it is all reciprocal. The teacher has certain duties to the students, and the students have certain duties to the teacher. Because the other day it was discussed that whole exploitation of teachers, especially sexual exploitation of students by teachers. So all the women, when children are grown up and when women hold less responsibility for children, it is still the tradition in Sri Lanka to devote more attention to their own spiritual development. Many spend a great deal of time in preparing and offering alms and other requisites to the monks. And it is noteworthy that there is a dramatic increase of meditation centers at present in the country, and an equal increase of women who are not so old, even younger women, who participate in meditation retreats. In the rural areas, the lay women have always given special care to the 10 precept nuns, and contributed a great deal to the development of their nunneries. Since the reinstitution of the bhikkhuni ordination in the recent times, it is again the lay women in rural areas that have readily welcomed the bhikkhunis and increasingly recognize the nuns' spiritual and social contribution to the community. It is the urban and the more educated women who show more resistance to accept the bhikshunis on par with men. One has to go into this. Why are they educated and urban women do not very much like to accept the Bhikshuni ordination, whereas the rural women do accept that, readily welcome them. I think probably the role of the education, Western kind of education has spoiled these women, have brainwashed these women to think differently. So it is nothing but the education system and the social system that they live in the case of urban and educated women. In the final stages of old age, women in Sri Lanka in general seem well prepared to face death after devoting several years of life on Dhamma practice. This death is one of those things. And I think it is very much different probably in Sri Lanka in the case of death, accepting death so readily when I compare in the case of Cambodia. So matter of fact, so down to earth, so normal. So in my conclusion, what I say is that many of the Buddhist principles which have guided the lives of women tended to lose their original strength and meaning as the society reached urbanization, Western type of modernization and education. But still, in untainted remote villages, the lives of women are still shaped and influenced by these principles. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hannah. Our next article to be presented is Reaching Out to Elders, Social Activism Among the Younger Generation of Korean Buddhist Nuns. And the author of the article is Venerable Mingyun Sunil from Korea. And she's a professor of Dongyang Sangha University in Korea. And although we were trying to, facilitate to have the Venerable to speak to us in Korean, but the Venerable is so thoughtful and so humble, so she is sending us Venerable Shuo Wu to read the English translation for her. So let's welcome Venerable Shuo Wu.
My name is Seol Wo, in Korean name. Suo Wu is Chinese name. Okay. Nice to meet you, everybody. I am very honored to get an opportunity making presentation at 7thSakyadhita International Conference on Buddhist women. Actually, Venerable Mingyun Sunil is president of Ilsan Social Welfare Center, which is the best facility one in Korea. So I will talk about Korean Ilsan General Welfare Center as the main topics. It will be introduced by below stand. First, present conditions on Korean social welfare. Second, expert educational programs for Jungwang Sangha University of Joge Order. Third, the present position of Lotus Village as a social welfare corporation, the founding objective and the main activities. First, introducing aged social welfare programs for unification among generations of Ilsan General Welfare Center, which is managed by Lotus Village. First, present conditions on Korean social welfare. Korean government, which has achieved $10,000 is the per capita income, is determined to support on the field of social welfare in full scale in 1990s. Even though various social welfare fields, children's welfare, social welfare for the handicapped, and aged social welfare for the elderly, and so on, had the basic forms before 1970s. The related laws continued to develop until now. And academic circles defined the social welfare in Korea took its cultural-oriented form after 1990s. Especially according to the 2001 survey of the Korean Statistical Bureau, the Korean aged population is about 3.45 million, which occupies 7.4% of whole population. And it is presumed to reach 14.3% in 2022, which means the start of the aged society. Therefore, government policy on the aged social welfare policy for the elderly is developing very rapidly. Furthermore, the Korean government supports the positive participation by private organizations. Therefore, social welfare corporations have the priority on the administrative rights on all social welfare facilities. As of December 2001, there are 251 corporations, including social welfare corporations, non-profit organizations, and educational foundations, currently in December 2001, and after 1990s, religious corporations such as Buddhism, Christianity, Catholics are increasing. Therefore, more participation toward social welfare by religious bodies will be maintained. In addition, there are 1,226 social welfare facilities supported by the government. The number of non-authorized facilities is about 1,800 operating, and in Buddhism, 317 facilities of 78 social welfare-related organizations, children's welfare facilities, aged welfare facilities, handicapped and disabled welfare facilities, juvenile welfare facilities, women's welfare facilities, and medical welfare facilities, and so on, are in operation. Around 30 facilities are managed by bhikkhuni, and most of them are graduated of Buddhist Social Welfare Department from Jungang Sangha University. Second, expert educational programs for Jungang Sangha University of Jogye Order. The founding ideology of Jungang Sangha University is education of Buddhist monks who can heal social conflicts and sentient beings' sufferings, as well as creative succession of Korean Buddhism tradition by studying Buddhism and related science in practical method while defending national spirits. The Jungang Sangha University was authorized as miscellaneous school on February 27, 1990s, with a capacity for 120 entering students, 64 Department of Buddhism, 64 Buddhist Social Welfare Department, and the expert training programs were allowed to hold 30 months per department by the Ministry of Education. Sura Translation Department and Social Buddhist Teaching Department newly added at the present time. Therefore, the Buddhist Social Welfare Department has produced 362 welfare experts in total ever since 1990s till February 2002 currently. Among the graduated, 318 are Buddhist nuns, and most of them have obtained a first-grade social worker's license. At present, 110 student monks are in the Department of Buddhist Social Welfare, and 61 of them are Buddhist nuns. Dongguk University also has social welfare department. In 1991, Buddhist graduate school with Buddhist social welfare and social welfare department are established to train expertise. Most of them occupy important posts in Jogye Order, or as an effort to his or her temple, each of them are contributing for Buddhist development and saving sentient beings in regional societies. Third, The present position of Lotus Village, or in Korean languages, Yeonkom Maul, as a social welfare corporation. Lotus Village was made by Bigu Gakton Snin 11 years before. The founding objective is respecting elders, doing filial duty, and most of the centers present is Biguni. There are 28 centers in 4 Korean countries, and there are 360 workers. The main activities in installing and managing aged homes and nursing homes, managing operation for free aged hospitals, interesting management operations for general social welfare centers and aged general welfare centers, temple management operations for aged spiritual culture, instrument of training centers for the idea of respecting elders and filial duty, in home care services for aged, council operation with study on the aged programs, community social welfare operations, group home social welfare operations for children, aged house managing operations for daycare centers, managing operations for nursing personal association, various operations for aged cultural encouragement, the other kind of management for achieving corporate organizations. First, social welfare programs for unification among generations at the Korean Ilsan Aged General Welfare Center, for the aged person. There are approximately 108 facilities of aged general social welfare centers nationwide in June 2002 at the present time, and Ilsan Aged General Welfare Center, which is managed by Social Welfare Corporation Lotus Village, is mainly trying to activate aged recreation and training programs in management operation. This form of management could positively help aged in treating psychological phenomena such as loneliness symptoms originated from feeling of identity loss, often upward during the aged period when isolation from the outside is getting serious while social activity is reducing. However, on the point where aged population is increasing rapidly and social programs for aged will happen in various forms, and in order to solve this, various kinds of administrative social welfare support with program developments are important, while sanctioning one family function is much more important. Therefore, aged social welfare center management programs should put an emphasis on in order to unify family members, not on the aged program itself. Besides the activation of the third generation's unification program will play an important role in rapidly increasing aged programs, while contributing to the social stability through prevention of family dismantling and increasing family function. Important programs are as follows. 1. Lake Cultural Festival, the big festival for aged and community people together. 2. Hammam Athletic Games, family harmonization programs through sports with aged and family members together. 3. Group presentation, presenting training contents, running during special activity programs to the family invitations. 4. Showing proud family, get-together party for 3 generations centering aged. 5. Community citizens training programs. Aged lecturers are teaching summer vacation school to youth, children, and housewives. others. 6. Volunteer activities of each generation. Through generational volunteer activities by youth, children, and housewives in the community, the aged are becoming managing supporters of aged welfare center and simultaneously ensures generational meeting space with understanding aged social welfare. As aforementioned, I just have briefly introduced the contents on Buddhist nuns' social activities, expert training course, university in Joge order, and aged social welfare programs for unification among generations of the Ilsan Aged General Welfare Center operated by Lotus Village, which is the Buddhist Social Welfare Corporation. Through these activities, we receive a positive pleasure from society, expect more participation, and show fairly good words by Buddhist nuns. Besides these social welfare activities, Buddhist nuns are playing a leading role in participation in NGO activities and environment protection, as well as traditional temple teaching lessons to lay Buddhists. Nowadays, many lay Buddhists are paying serious attention to dying patients, and lots of general hospitals are managing temples which are spiritual refuge for patients. In addition, Buddhist nuns are leading pioneers in various fields, and in the near future, we can expect more social activities by Buddhist nuns in Korea. Thank you for very much.
Thank you, Venerable Yin Slim and Venerable. And can you say your Korean name again?
Nguyen 스님, my name is 설오 스님.
Soro Sumi.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Our next presenter is one of my most brilliant sisters, Dr. Elizabeth O, who received her PhD degree in history from Harvard University. And she is currently teaching at National Taiwan Normal University. She's teaching, the future teachers for Taiwan. Okay, and her topic is reaching all generations, Buddhist outreach in Taiwan. Let's welcome her.
Thank you so much. It's so interesting to listen to the Korean venerables talk about Buddhist outreach. Can you hear me? Yes. Do you have my paper? Yes. Okay. Because it's so interesting to hear the venerables talk about Buddhist outreach in Korea. Because now I will talk about Buddhist outreach in Taiwan. And there are some similarities and some differences. So, well, first, since 1949, institutionalized Buddhism in Taiwan has seen tremendous growth, especially since the economic takeoff in Taiwan in 1970s, and then in the mid-1980s, the end of the martial law in Taiwan, and the development of democratic government and civil society here. According to the most recent government statistics, the number of Buddhists in Taiwan has increased from 800,000 followers in 1983 to around 3.67 million Buddhists today, out of Taiwan's overall population of 22 million. It is also vital to note that the total number of monks and nuns in Taiwan is 30,000, 75% of whom are nuns. And as we all know, this is an amazing and unique phenomenon in world Buddhism. These figures are even more stupendous when we realize that historically speaking, the major religion in Taiwan is not Buddhism, actually, but rather the polytheistic and syncretic religion known as the Chinese folk religion. And this is a mixture of ancestor worship, worship of Guanyin, worship of the folk goddess Matu, worship of the Wang Ye, who protect communities against disease and disaster, worship of the eternal mother, the Wushanahu, the earth god, the kitchen god, plus a whole pantheon of gods and heroes from the Taoist tradition. So historically, that's what most people have worshipped in Taiwan. And even today, most people in Taiwan are not officially and regularly affiliated with a formal organized religion, be it Buddhism, Taoism, Christianity, Islam, and some other smaller sects and New Age religions. Many people here, especially those people living in urban areas, are either completely unreligious or from time to time they do undertake certain rituals according to the Chinese almanac and on various holidays according to the Chinese lunar calendar. Besides the rituals of ancestor worship, common petitions to the gods and goddesses made include praying for success on examinations, praying for health and wealth, to beget children, especially sons, for protection against accidents and harm, as well as, of course, for funeral and mourning rituals. But however, as just noted above, in the last 20 years, Taiwan has seen a dramatic revival in institutionalized Buddhism, which is primarily a mixture of Pure Land, Omitopo, and Chan, and centered around temples and monasteries of fully ordained monks and nuns who propagate the Dharma. And nuns and monks have worked together with their hardworking, generous, and loyal lay followers to create the Pure Land on earth. This means that Buddhism here not only guides the Taiwanese to ponder spiritual, philosophical, and ethical questions, but also Buddhism here has tried to promote the values of community and involvement and voluntarism in Taiwan. So Buddhist organizations have fostered a concern for the common good, for the greater good of society that is relatively new to the traditionally family-oriented Chinese culture of Taiwan. And this is page 2. The Buddhists are also building an international network of Buddhist organizations that embraces not only the Mahayana traditions, but spreads out to countries in the Theravada tradition in a conscious effort to strengthen the roots of the Buddhist worldview in contemporary society. And taken as a whole, Buddhist organizations in Taiwan are rich in human talent, property, and resources. And we can say that Buddhism is the fastest growing religion in Taiwan today. And so this is part 2. So what is the secret of their success? There are many reasons for this, political, economic, and cultural, but right now I want to focus on how Taiwan Buddhism has proselytized and attracted lay followers from across the spectrum of generations, from the following 4 categories: children, high school, college students, adults, and senior citizens. And I don't have time to talk about the charity and welfare and the medicine and so on. I'm just going to talk about proselytizing among these 4 groups. So, since Taiwan is a group-oriented society, Buddhists here naturally focus on methods of group mobilization. And they use proselytizing traditions from both within and without Buddhism. So Buddhist traditions include holding large-scale Buddhist gatherings, celebration of the Buddha's birthday, and the major hoodoo rituals for the dead and the spirits held every August. The Japanese have a similar thing, obon, and Buddhist lectures and sermons, 1-day, 3-day, and 7-day retreats, Chan retreats, lay ordination ceremonies, pilgrimages, free publications, and classes on Buddhist teachings for every level. Now, Buddhist organizations in Taiwan also adopt methods and forms that are familiar to people here from their schools and from their clubs, like group spirit rallies, night school. They have fairs and auctions and formal degree programs. So needless to say, Huafan University is an outstanding example of formal education. And Buddhists have also adopted methods and forms from the Boy and Girl Scouts here. Taiwan has Boy and Girl Scouts. So we have summer and winter camps. I think many countries have these camps. Various hobby and personal enrichment classes geared to different age groups. Buddhists, they stress how much they've learned from Christian groups too, who have much experience in organizing camps, retreats, classes of all kinds, and charity drives. So for children, Buddhists hold camps and teach the Dharma through cartoons and picture books, singing, games, dancing, storytelling, and art projects. For the youth, besides the college student clubs and summer and winter meditation camps that they organize, here we must note the work of the Chinese Young Buddhist Association. This morning we saw part of their video about all their activities that especially target students and young adults. And Huafan University, for example, this summer, next month, is having a interreligious camp. And they're inviting all these representatives from different religions to come to Huafan and talk with young people about interreligious dialogue. And also we have the activities of the Chinese Buddhist Temple Association, which not only serves as an umbrella organization for temples throughout Taiwan, but also does the following. They hold series of seminars on how to integrate Buddhism with their daily life. They teach the Dharma in jails and detention centers. They hold college students career development workshops. And this is page 3. They hold a lecture series on the problems and concerns of teenagers, how to deal with their examination pressures, how to develop communication skills. And people in Taiwan are really interested in this EQ thing, emotional quotient, like how to manage your emotions and express your emotions. So instead of saying IQ, we say EQ. And they also hold a series of lectures and concerns on the needs of single-parent households, because it's becoming a more and more problem now in Taiwan, single parent, just one mother or one father with children. So how to manage those problems. And these are just some of the activities of the Chinese Buddhist Temple Association. So now to turn to another generation group. For adults, there's a wide variety of activities as mentioned earlier. Also, for example, the Tzu Buddhist Foundation has a men's league, a group just for men. And they have a teachers association composed of teachers and professors from all over Taiwan. And they established Tzu student clubs in universities across Taiwan. And as for the senior citizens, besides classes on the Dharma, and we have classes in adult education and all kinds of hobbies, the Buddhist groups visit ill and bedridden elders who may not have family members to care for them, as was the rule in the Chinese tradition before. And recently, one topic of great interest in Taiwan, and apparently also in Korea now, is about dying with dignity, hospice care, the whole subject of death and the afterlife. And Buddhist groups hold classes and seminars to discuss these sensitive issues, because in Chinese culture, death and dying is taboo, and you should not talk about it too much before. In addition, Buddhist temple organizations, they hold scholarly conferences, like Huafan, art exhibitions, concerts that enrich and elevate Taiwan cultural life. And Buddhist organizations reach all generations through their own newspapers, their own television stations, their own TV programs, websites, magazines, music, and videotapes. So they fully use the media. So thus, Buddhist outreach in Taiwan reflects fully the high level of education that Taiwanese people have received over the past 50 years, and also access to technology and information, and freedom of the press, which Taiwanese have enjoyed, especially since the 1980s. And I'll just mention this, there's a website down here, it's called the Buddhism City. I won't read the whole thing, but it's a whole website about everything about Buddhism in Taiwan and around the world. It's in Chinese though. But, okay, well, let me just switch to page 4, section 3. I will now make some concluding reflections. No one can deny or castigate the great achievements and contributions that Buddhist groups have made to Taiwan society and culture, which with such spectacular growth over the last 20 years. Obviously, Buddhism has contributed wonderfully to the spiritual, emotional, and intellectual lives of Taiwanese. Yet I see some difficulties or problems involved with Buddhist outreach in Taiwan, not just in Taiwan, but all over the world. So number 1, as Venerable Kusama mentioned on the first day of our conference, as you remember, and others have echoed, the great challenge for all religions, but perhaps especially Buddhism, remains this: how to protect the need for individual study, meditation, reflection, discernment, silence, solitude, and non-attachment, not only in the midst of all the demands, the confusion, the violence, and noisy materialism of some of our overly developed societies, but also when one is fully committed to a Buddhist group and the group's mission and your busy secular activities, however laudable and beneficial to society they may be, one's own study and cultivation may be neglected or even forgotten with all this busyness. There's so much action, but is there corresponding reflection and discernment? And 2, as someone has written in an article, in recent years, Taiwanese Buddhism has gained an unprecedented social audience and independence. However, the proliferation of communities gathered around competing spiritual masters still makes them prone to political manipulation. Now, what I mean by this is, there is no state or official religion in Taiwan. Freedom of religion is a constitutional right of all citizens, and all religious groups are private, non-government organizations. But I feel that it's a bit disturbing to observe the factionalism and competition that exists among some Buddhist organizations in Taiwan. The term in Chinese is called mountaintopism, 山头主义, meaning that certain Buddhist organizations have become virtual fiefdoms unto themselves and they're reluctant to share with each other, share people and resources. But luckily, there are some groups that endeavor to unite and form positive alliances among different Buddhist groups. For example, like the Buddhist Association of the Republic of China on Taiwan, and the Chinese Young Buddhist Association in Taiwan, the Chinese Buddhist Temple Association, as mentioned above, the World Religion Museum, and I hope someday we can have very soon Sakyadhita branch in Taiwan. So, and number 3, another concern, another concern is the social critique developed by Taiwanese Buddhism remains rather cautious at present. What I mean by this is, could not Buddhist groups in Taiwan speak out more strongly against those Taiwanese companies and some government policies that have contributed to the pollution and environmental degradation of Taiwan? I mean, we know that Buddhism are very good with environmental, but maybe we could even be more and in the future, perhaps the Buddhist groups in Taiwan could do even more to help the underprivileged non-Chinese Aboriginal groups, or perhaps to oppose the sex industry, or support the anti-nuclear power movement, or there's a brand new and very tiny movement to abolish the death penalty here, and participate more in today's life and death struggle against terrorism, militarism, and violence. Well, these are all very big, important questions, and it takes a long time, but I think that these concerns, all the Buddhist groups in Taiwan should unite their hearts and minds and resources and cooperate with each other, and also cooperate with Buddhist groups worldwide. For the Dharma transcends individual egos, and it transcends attachment to masters and groups, to nations, and to one's Buddhist tradition, and this may be the hardest challenge of all. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Venerable Ren Lang. I'm sure by now everyone knows her, and we have witnessed, how great a job she's done coordinating all these. So for your information, since yesterday we have given her this nickname, the Super Nun. And it is also added that she's a Super Nun with wings. Okay, I will just, let her do her talk. Her topic is Betwixt and Between, Communicating the Dharma Across Generations. Let's welcome Venerable Ren Lang.
Thank you, Christine. Afternoon, venerable, and venerables. ladies, and 2, 3 gentlemen. Thank you. And it is my great honor to share some of my ideas with you concerning communicating the Dharma across generations. This topic was originally designed for me by Venerable Leshe Zoma because she knows very well about my relationship with my master, Venerable Yuan. Therefore, I would like to present to you my personal experience in Buddhist training with my master, Venerable Yuan, the founder of Pakhan University. So, in this presentation, I will approach the topic of bridging generations from the perspective of one who is both a traditionally trained Buddhist nun and at the same time a wisdom educated woman with a PhD in Buddhist studies. In this sense, like many people of my generation, I combine two perspectives, one traditional and one modern or Western. For me, the traditional perspective is more associated with religious practice, specifically Buddhist practice, whereas the Western perspective is more associated with knowledge and academic training. Here, I will discuss the question of bridging generations from the perspective of Buddhist practice, because that is the essential foundation of my life as a Buddhist nun. Whereas the intellectual approach is to expand my knowledge and understanding of Buddhism. Of these two perspectives, the traditional and the modern, it is the traditional way of practice that seems unchangeable because it is a reliable path to achieving the main goal of Buddhist practice, which is to become an enlightened Buddha. This training takes time. It requires patience, calmness, compassion, and insight. Observing the precepts and practicing the 6 perfections, paramitas, is the basic training to achieve enlightenment. Still, the method of teaching and training can be flexible. Intellectual training may not seem closely related to the aim of achieving enlightenment, but it is an expedient means of understanding what Buddhism is. As viewed from a broader perspective, for instance, each of the different Buddhist traditions has its own history, system of thought, and method of training. We do not need to know all of them in order to become enlightened. We only need more. But as scholars, we need to be familiar with as many of these traditions as possible in order to teach Buddhism well. Another aspect of communicating Dharma across generations concerning the teacher-disciple relationship. Each generation has its own unique character, influenced by its particular social, historical, and cultural conditions. The difference between a traditional master, such as my master, Venerable Yuan, and a teacher of the younger generation, such as myself, is not great. It is mostly a difference in the degree of understanding and level of spiritual development. My master was also a different generation from her master, Venerable Tan Xu, the 43rd patriarch of the Tiantai school in China. So, even though she seems very traditional to us today, she was a pioneer in her own time. In that generation, during the 1950s, she was unique in being the only female disciple of these famous Tiantai masters. Moreover, she was unique in being an internationally famous artist rather than a traditional Buddhist. As an artist, painter, poet, writer, philosopher, and educator, Venerable Yuan was a pioneer in many fields. When she began teaching at the graduate level in 1972, she was also the first ordained nun to teach at a university in Taiwan. She broke through many social and cultural boundaries and was successful in her struggle because of her own unique background. When I first met Venerable Yuan, I was not a Buddhist and had very little knowledge about Buddhism. My classmates forced me to accompany her when she went to visit the master. I was forced. And I was really very hesitant to see a highly cultivated Buddhist practitioner. I was afraid that she would see through me because I was a very ordinary, worldly person. I could not imagine how I could achieve anything in the Buddhist realm. But when I met the master and listened to a talk she gave about calm abiding, shamatha, and insight, vipassana, and had the chance to talk with her personally, I felt unexplainably delighted. The second impression I got was seeing how busy she was working for others, while I was busy working only for myself. I decided to devote some time to help her, to assist her in her work. As I did that, I got an even deeper impression of her calm and compassion. I worked for entire days without speaking, and she never really spoke to me either. But that was a very powerful experience for me that stimulated me to think about many different questions and sparked my interest in Buddhism. As I stayed with her, I saw that she could work all day and all night without sleep, whereas I got tired and frustrated because I was not able to meet her expectations. It never occurred to me to leave, but I was aware of the vast difference between her capabilities and my own. For example, she is a gifted artist, poet, and writer, but no matter how hard I tried, I could not become a painter, poet, or writer. At first, I thought I should learn everything she had to taught me, but eventually I realized that I would never be her. I gave up trying to be what I was not and decided to focus on Buddhist practice instead. I began to view all the work I did for her as part of the training. I could not become a painter, but I could serve her as she painted and listen as she lectured. In the process, I learned patience and also learned something about Buddhist art. Totally apart from her many accomplishments, it was her personal qualities as a Buddhist master that most inspired me. My master was very strict with me and never compromised when it came to my deficiencies. Being close to her sometimes made the training even harder, but it was also a great blessing. Maybe because she saw that I had a mind of my own, she never gave me a chance to negotiate, though she always let me express my opinions freely. There was the fresh air in the midst of the stringent training that made it possible for me to persevere with the training. Many others gave up. They got upset and left, seeing only her strictness and missing the whole point of the training. The greatest difficulty I faced was when I tried to emulate all her accomplishments. Besides her special gifts as an artist, she was also an accomplished meditator and could sit all day without effort. Whereas I was in such pain in the beginning, I could hardly sit for an hour. She seemed to be naturally free of all defilements, whereas I still struggle with my desire to visit friends and go shopping. She was such a good master, such a good model. She never engaged in meaningless chatter. I feel embarrassed to share my struggles and my defilements with her, because she seems totally free of them. So I have to struggle with them myself. Of course, she gave me excellent advice about how to put the teaching into practice, but it was like describing the taste of water or food. Ultimately, I have to struggle with it myself. She was so far ahead in the practice, whereas I was just beginning. I learned that ultimately the practice is a personal matter. Nobody else can practice for us, even the master. But now I feel very happy because I can see the whole process very clearly. I work very hard and struggle so intensely. And I feel that I have taken some steps. I feel much more confident now and feel very happy that I am a Buddhist. I know that I made the right decision to be a practitioner rather than an artist. Because of my own personal inclinations, I follow my own interest interest and got a doctorate in Buddhist studies, but I am primarily a Buddhist practitioner. As I follow the teaching of my master, I still have to search for my own particular path, my own way to become enlightened. My new job as a professor, as an administrator, communicating with all kinds of people, my own meditation practice, and the whole process of daily life all contribute to my own insight. This development of awareness and wisdom will ultimately lead to a realization of my own. When the time comes for me to have disciples of my own, the students will be different, and there will also be a difference between my way of teaching and my master's. Not only will it be a new generation, but also my teaching style will be a result of my own experience. And I will feel confident doing that, because I myself have gone through the whole process of training. The question is, will the next generation be able to undergo the same process of training that I have? I have been with my master for 30 years now, and I'm not sure that this process can be speeded up. For true enlightenment, people need to practice over the long term, which takes time and practice. The new generation is used to instant gratification and also cannot accept the old teaching style unquestioningly. The world is changing so rapidly, and social conditions and human relationships have shifted so radically. Both teachers and disciples have to be very patient, gentle, and flexible. Our teachers have been very patient with us, and we were patient with our teachers. Now, to be good teachers, we will need to be patient with our students, and the next generation of students will also need to be patient with us. We will need to be patient and understanding. We also need to uphold certain principles that cannot be compromised. Training is essential to Buddhist practice, for without it, we will just remain the same and never get out of samsara. My first goal is to be a practitioner, and second, a teacher. As the great Tentai Master Ziyi said, the more I teach, the fewer people get enlightened. And he went back to the practice. To be a real teacher is to be a model of the goal of achieving enlightenment. We can pass on whatever knowledge and wisdom we have gained, but the next generation will need to achieve the qualities of enlightenment by their own efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our superman. Okay, now we have some time open for questions. Questions or comments? Yes. Yes, Dr. Mishra, right?
It is for Dr. Hema. With due respect, I want to say that a birth of girl child in Hinduism is only after Manu era, not before Manu era. In Vedic period, girl was equally treated as man. So it is the deterioration after Manu era. Thank you.
Thank you, Nivedita. Yes, I mentioned that, but good to remind again. Yes, the position of women was higher, much higher than it is even now during the Vedic times and the down to the Upanishad times up to the Manu period of the Brahmanas. So the Buddha emerged during the worst period of time. That's why he had to become a social reformer. Thank you. Yes.
My name is Sokdam. I have a question to Dr. Hema. And page 1, your paper, and the end of the paragraph, almost the end of the paragraph. And you said I think talking about the king who is the Buddhist Queen Marika had given birth to a girl. The Buddha declared a girl may even prove a better offspring than a boy. And you said the king had not yet been converted to Buddhism. I saw this sentence in some Pali Sutra. So I'm not sure about the king. The king was not yet Buddhist. Would you please a little bit explain for me which sutra and how can you say the king was not yet converted to Buddhism?
Yes. It was a process during that time. Many kings were seeing the Buddha, and even if you take refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, the certain people were not very convinced.
Yeah.
And so it took a long process. Now, for example, Visakha's husband became a Buddhist. Visakha was the strongest Buddhist in the Buddhist literature in the Buddha's time, and even up to now, perhaps, as a laywoman, she was the strongest woman, much stronger than sometimes even monks.
Yeah.
But her husband took a long time, and it was a long process for the husband to become a Buddhist. So like King Pasenadi too, because the fact that he mentioned that, because by then even the Buddha was there already for a while, and when he said, "Oh Lord, my queen had given birth to a daughter," he was not quite a Buddhist, but he was seeing the Buddha. So it was a long process, because it takes a while to be convinced and to live a life of a real, genuine Buddhist.
Yeah, but I think I'm not sure. But at that time, my understanding of Pali Sutra, and at that time, the King Pasenadi visited Buddha. And I think he visited Buddha before he had his daughter. Just I'm curious, the king Pasenadi was not yet converted to Buddhism. Okay, thank you.
Yes, please.
저는 한국에서 온 홍갈입니다. 제 친구 석담 스님이 통역을 해주셔야겠습니다. 인당 스님과 엘리사 박사님께 질문을 드리고 싶습니다. 인당 스님의 스승과 제자 관계를 아주 감명 깊게 들었습니다. 어떤 면에서?
I'm going to translate to her, and yes, my name is Bunga. I came from Korean. Actually, she is the leader of the whole Korean non group, and she said she started a lot from the Venerable Yenang's your paper, and then I forgot the Dr. Elizabeth. I'm sorry, and And so she had a question to both of you. So she said she's really interested in how to train how are you gonna train your disciple Yenna? Because she has a disciple too. I'm interested in too. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't had any disciple yet.
I'm sorry, sorry.
한국말을 전부 안 알려줄 수 있다고 생각해요. 미안해요.
And she said, I'm sorry, she said, she's Korean, so she thought everybody understands Korean, so she talks longer, so I stopped her, so she said, I'm sorry. I said,
No, thank you.
thank you.
그래서 엔남 스님은 아주 행운하셨다는 생각이 들어요. 훌륭한 스승을 만나셨어요.
And she think about Venerable Yenna, and you are really lucky and you are blessed to meet your master.
그래서 우리들 시대, 엔남 스님이나 우리들 시대 그 수행자들 다같이 어려움을 겪어왔지만 스님이나 우리는 그래도 행복한 사람이라고 생각합니다.
She said, our generation, like you and her and us, we gone through a lot, and then, but she thinks we are really blessed and we are lucky.
그런데 우리 이후에 우리들의 제자들은 더 복잡한 세상을 살아가게 될 것입니다.
She said, in the future we're gonna confront with more complicated society, and as you mentioned, and the world is changing so rapidly.
그래서 우리의 그 제자들은 더 복잡한 일을 해야 되고 더 많은 그 일들을 겪어야 되는데 엔남 스님 말씀에 프랙티셔널 수행자로서 남아라 이런 말씀을 가르치신다고 했는데요. 그 복잡한 시대, 어려운 시대를
어떻게 통과했어요? Yeah, she said she has asked you, Venerable Yenna, because we have to deal the very complicated society, and the demands of people are so diverse. So, and then, but the Venerable Yenna mentioned in her paper, if she understand correctly, you like to remain as a practitioner and also as academic person. So how she's really interested in how can we combine both. I'm interested in your
그곳에 어떻게 하면 수행자로서 남을 수 있는 교육이 어떤 특별한 교육이 있는가?
So she asks to Yenna, Venerable Yenna, and do you have any special kind of technique?
Yes.
To
I think everyone is just waiting anxiously for Venerable Yenna's
yeah,
answer. So
a
that's
practitioner combine beautifully as practitioner and as academic person, as profession. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Now, okay. So shall we ask Venerable Yenna to answer the question?
I think it's a good question. Very good question. And got me a lot. It's really, because I tend to avoid to touch it in my presentation. I think it's I think the most thing which will lead me all the way is the teaching of my master. Because from the beginning, my training has been meditation and working all together. I have been working and working, and I only can steal time to study. And by working, it seems I have no time to get any other thought. I don't have the time to think. I have to work. I just have to focus my energies, my, any intents, very straightly. So when I was studying in America, I think this seems to be my models, to be working, to work, and to practice all together, and nothing different. Nothing is different. I think that is the most important thing, because living in this modern world, we couldn't escape from this world, and we just have to face it, and we have to practice truly in order to carry it out. And so my master always say, samadhi is a non-sitting, non-walking, 非行非坐三昧. That means the samadhi is within working. Samadhi is within everything, no matter whatever we are doing, and we just have to put up for ourselves. That's my secret. And now I share with everybody.
질문이 길어져서 죄송합니다. 엘리사 박사님한테 제가 준비했던 질문을 드리고 싶습니다.
She said, I'm sorry, she has two questions. She takes too much time, but she would like to ask you to Dr. Yes.
네, 엘리사 선생님은 그 대만민의 약화 형태를 말씀해 주셨는데요.
네.
네, 그것은 뭐 한국에도 적용되는 그 형태라고 말씀드릴 수가 있습니다.
She said the Dr. Elizabeth mentioned various aspects of Taiwanese Buddhism, and she thinks it is similar to situation in Korea too.
네, 그래서 좀 재미있는 질문이 될까 모르겠는데요. 삼국배기주의라는 말씀을 아까 하셨습니다.
She said it's very interesting you mentioned something about the mountain.
Dr. Park, would you like to help a little bit? Thank you.
산토조이. 예, 한국에서도 그런 그 상황이 나타나는데요. 이것은 어떤 그 비판적인 시각도 물론 그 중요합니다만, 제가 언뜻 생각에 이것은 9,000년 당시에 에카야나도 그런 형태로서 볼 수 있는 것은 아닌가 하는 생각이 언뜻 들어서 질문을 드립니다. 지금
Okay, Chan, you want to translate?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
I just having trouble about you said something mountain. I remember which page did you mention? It was interesting to me too. Mountain something.
Page 4.
Page 4, yeah, that's right. Mountain. On the bottom. Page 4. Sorry.
Yes, page 4 on the bottom paragraph.
산토주의.
Yeah, 山头主义.
It's a mountain top Buddhism.
山头主义.
이것이 비판적인 시각도 우리가 볼 수 있는데, 그전 당시에 에카야나도 어떤 관계를 갖는가 좀 재미있는 이야기가 될지 모르겠는데.
She understands the word 산토주의 is a little bit mixed with criticism, but in the during of the Buddha. I'm sorry. During the time of the Buddha, online.
Okay, yes, please. Yeah, please explain.
Well, what I mean is that there are some temples in Taiwan that are very big and powerful, and they act like a mountain, like this mountain and that mountain, and they are far away from the other one. And so the Chinese call that Shanto. So this temple does not talk to that temple, or this temple is very jealous of the other temple. So all like these mountains.
So like, it's like the sectarian movie?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Something like
Okay, yeah, we have to take that lady's question. Yes, you've been raising your hand. I'll come to you later.
Okay, I have a question actually for the same two people, primarily for the Venerable Grunnaxer. The question I'm interested in, you described your master as being a very tireless person working for other people, described her working day and night. And this question also comes from Elise Vito's comment about wondering about the balance between such activity, working for other people, and yet having enough time to do your own development and reflection and things like this. And I'm wondering if you could describe for us what you saw your master doing, how she approached balancing time for herself and her own development and this work for other people. Thank you.
Yes, very lovely.
Yes, thank you. Here's another good question. I think it's follow up the following the preceding question. Yeah, it is. Yes, when I first met my master, I was shocked because she really seems to us she never really took a rest. You know. And then, but we also noticed that she sometimes within work she will, went to her room for a while and then came out with, fully energized again. And then we asked her, I think she went back to take a little bit meditation to put herself together again, because it seems like it. And then I think I found that, it was so difficult for myself to really, follow this way, because as I described it in my presentation, I think in the beginning, I think there was also a good practice because, by working all the time, it's a good way to get rid of my defilements. It's really a best way, because I didn't have time to think about it. So then it's eventually they're just gone. Because Master say, the defilement is just like, she always asks us, well, how could you get rid of darkness? And we couldn't answer. And she said, how stupid you are. Just turn the light. Turn the light, and the darkness will be gone. Right? So then that time is a good training for me because I was so active and outgoing. And then by working with her, I didn't have time to do any other things. So then come to the point, how did I really put myself together? But because not only working, we also did have time to meditate, to study. Yes, we did. We did, because with Master, she always has a very good planning of the daily schedule. We have a morning meditation, evening meditation, and also we have a 7 days retreat every year in the winter. And during the time, she always says, this is really a treat to you. Retreat is a real gift and real treat. And really be careful, to use it and to practice. And really, make every effort. I think, this is a path we have to go through by our own.
Nobody else can do it for us. Just like eating. The other day we were, had a very inspiring talk with Venerable Kenjin Hammer. She said the same thing. It's like the eating. Because eating, when we eat, we don't think. We will just feel it. We will just use our true feeling. So that is a different way from our, kinds of rational. It's totally different. So I think that's the way, we train it. We have been trained. So by working itself is the method of training, and it's a way of one of the practice. Because with so many defilements, even we meditate, it seems we're still going so far away from truth realization. So we try to find the best way to get rid of the defilements first. And then it's just don't attach to it. So that is my answer to you. Is that okay? Thank you.
We have time for only one more question. The lady over there. I'm sorry. No. I mean the lady in the back with, in yellow. Yeah, she's even raising her hand. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have two questions basically for Elizabeth. Regarding Taiwanese Buddhism, and particularly the period before the end of martial law, what role was played in sort of protest movements, if at all, or what was the relationship between the state and the Sangha at that time? If you happen to know at all, sorry. Just it. And sort of related to that question, currently, as I understand it, I don't really know, but there is a mandatory military service here in Taiwan for 2 years, is it? Around 2 years. This has become a question in Korea recently, where monks serve their mandatory military service, which is against one of the rules, right? It's like the 7thSakyadhitaConference, you can't kill anyone, right? So they're serving their military service in Korea, and this has finally become an issue. How has this been dealt with in the Taiwanese situation? Do monks serve the military service, and what is the status of conscientious objection?
That's very good questions. Okay, martial law ended in 1987, and before that time, you could not protest. There was no social protest. People were put into jail. Okay, so that's the first question.
Did many monks then go to jail, or was it?
I suppose over the years, yes, from the 50s on, yes, many people. And then as far as the military service, in very recent years now we have the conscientious objector status. And so if you're Buddhist or Quaker or any other, now you can, but you still have to service in the civils. You have to do social welfare, and longer. I think it's 3 years instead of 2 years. So, but that's only in the past few years. So before that, yes, monks had to serve in the army.
Okay. Just one more question. Yeah, the lady. Yes.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate Dr. Levan to share your personal experience with us. Thank you very much. I appreciate if you can share a little more about your the person who came from a traditional lineage and a tradition and went to America and had access with the Western culture, American influence, and how do you find the difference or similarity between two different issues? The reason why I appreciate this is through this conference, I have kind of two different directions. Buddhism and Western culture have some kind of not completely mixing together. So I wonder if you have a similar kind of feeling like I do. Thank you.
difficult. Because it seems I still don't have the question. I don't have the answer. That's real. It seems like I think probably it's still not the final answer, but I try to give some my own experience to try to use it as a kind of answer. I think the difference between the Buddhist way and the Western culture, it seems like only external, right? Because I think if we do things and meet people with the same wholehearted, it seems no boundary. And I think the difference resides in the way they live, they behave, and their daily life, right? But I think that is just the kinds of thing we need to try to adjust ourselves. For instance, when I first arrived in Seattle for my MA degree, and I really got sick because the courses, the school courses were so difficult and so demanding, and I couldn't really, meet the requirements. I mean, for the first time, in the beginning. And I talked to the professor, and I say, can I, extend my Sanskrit class? Sanskrit, yes, because I started my Sanskrit studies in the first year after I arrived there. And I talked to the professor, can I take it next year instead of taking it this year? And the professor said, no, if you don't take it, you go back to your country. So hard and so demanding. And I was so frustrated. And I had to study about 8 hours for 1 hour class every day. It was so difficult. And I feel so lonely. But it seems like, even something you have to do and then you just have to do it. And because nobody will understand the difficulty you are going through. So I think that is the one example. But for the living, I think it is the most easy because the Western food and the Eastern food, for me, I prefer Eastern. I'm not tofu. But I like rice, of course. Because whole day, because in the first quarter, because the University of Washington has a quarterly system. And I bring the English motto with me, 3 of them, every day to the school, to the university. And I eat them every day. And then I was so, it seems that I couldn't feel very, satisfied. I never feel full because it's not rice. I think that is a personal, it's a physical experience, and I get used to it. And then I think that just take time. And everything takes time. Physical habits and our mental training also take time. But I think if we have a good aim, goal, I think it's that, and we know what we are going through in the process, and then we will be fine. I think the most important thing is a good goal, significant goal. And then we see that, and then the whole process will be no problem, nothing. No matter how hard, difficult it will be. And then we just go through it. I think that is what the Buddha taught us. If you want to get the taste, and you have to go for it. Yeah. So I think that is the whole thing about the self-experience.
Thank you, Venerable. So I think to summarize, Venerable is saying that as long as you have the correct direction, as long as you're on the right path, all you do is just have good faith. You are bound to just, go through, no problem.
I probably there's one point I can also mention here. It's I think I was shocked also in the class by a professor, and she was very good in Abhidharma and Yogacara. And whenever she has a class, she would say, we are in an academic discussion now. No religious experience will be discussed here. I was so upset. What should I do? And what should I say? What can I say? Because when I got there, I thought, it will be a spiritual, sharing over discussion. But then in the class, totally different. But it's just a kind of academic training in that way. So probably this will be more appropriate to answer your question. So there will be different, totally different experience.
Well, my maybe more keen concern is opposed to Asian and Western diversity. How do you compromise? I'm not sure what kind of words I should use, but I'm sure there's a clear difference between these two. I'm sensing it through this conference. And I'd like to know how you feel and you feel now through this conference. Thank you.
I think yesterday, Venerable Tenji Pamo told us, right? When she greets with others, they kiss and they hug, right? But then they feel nothing. Yeah, so then it's the way we live, and then we just, not try not to be too extraordinary, right? So then, but we have something, principle we have to resist, we have to insist, right? So for, because there sometimes I don't wear the long robe because it's running on the campus, but everybody, recognize me. I remember a newspaper stand, a salesperson there. Whenever she saw me, she said, "Oh, here comes my favorite hat in the city is coming. My favorite hat in the city is coming." Her favorite hat, in the city is coming. And I think he's seeing me as a fashionable style instead of a noun, right? And I said, "Oh, you like it? You can shave your hair too." Yes, and then when I walk on the street in the first year, this on Seattle, near campus, right? The university. There were so many punks, right? The punks. They came out after 6 o'clock. And then my class, ended on about 5 o'clock, and I went to library. So I came back, from the library about 8 o'clock. I have to walk through the street. And the punks, saw me and they touched me, And they thought I'm their companies, And I just smiled to them. What could I do, right? And because my long robe in the window is black, and this is so fashion. their favorite color. Right? Yeah, and I just have to use to it. Yeah, so I think, but there's not a problem.
Yeah, do you all get a copy of that newspaper with a very big photo with the back of Venerable Renang's head? Now you know why. Okay, really, it's time to stop, and then we'll have a less than 10 minutes short break, and then we will go to the discussion group. Okay, Stefania has something to announce.
Okay, now you have a last chance to give addresses to Venerable lecture for the address list. And the deadline is at 5 o'clock. So after the discussion group, you can give it.
Yeah, we want your contact information. We are trying to compose, contact information at the end of the conference so that you can take away, each other's email address, phone number, and we can keep in touch with each other. So make sure you clarify your contact information.
And about the bus. Today the bus at 4:40 is waiting for you in the main gate, in front of the main gate. Anyway, there are some students who pick you up here in front of the conference hall at 4:20. And we'll go with you until the main gate. And yeah.
对不起，今天的那个交通车啊，4点40分从学校大门口发车。OK。4点40分发车，但是我们4点20分，请你们要搭交通车的朋友们，请到这边的大门口集合，我们会有同学引导你们到大门口去搭车，谢谢。
About the discussion, more discussion group.